Hey everyone, I'm Kirik, and today I'm going to give you a quick down and dirty Herald guide for World vs. World. First, we'll go over gear. This build has two variants, full Berserkers and full Marauders. My guild prefers Marauders gear for the extra survivability, but your guild may not. The armor runes should all be Superior Rune of the Scholar for the additional damage and critical damage. We have a hammer with Force and Impact sigils, and sword with Energy and Bloodlust sigils for weapons. Next, we'll talk about the build. We use Invocation, Devastation, and Herald, as shown here. There are no variants in this build with one exception. If you are placed in the same party as another Revenant that is also using Assassin's Presence in the Devastation line, one of you may swap to Notoriety instead. If you get placed in separate parties later, be sure to switch back. Assassin's Presence does not stack and has a 5-player cap that affects the party first. If both of you run it, one of you will be wasting a trait. Skills. As with all Revenant, your skills are based on the legendary stances you have equipped. This build calls for Legendary Dragon Stance, Glint, and Legendary Dwarf Stance, Jalis. While in Dragon Stance, maintain Facet of Strength and Facet of Darkness while running about and during the prep for battle. Before a fight, use the Facet of Nature, F2, and cancel it a few seconds later. This will extend the duration of buffs for the beginning of the fight. Maintain Facet of Strength, Might, and Facet of Darkness, Fury, for as long as you can. Use Burst of Strength, the Might Consume, while in melee range for Cleave. Gaze of Darkness, the Fury Consume, can be used as a stun break, and a melee range blind. Facet of Elements provides swiftness while maintained, and when consumed by Elemental Blast, it becomes a ranged AoE that applies Burning, Chill, and Weakness. Elemental Blast is commonly used to cleave downstate players. Facet of Light applies regeneration to allies while maintained. Infused Light, its consumability, provides a buff that converts all damage to healing for a short period. The elite skill, Facet of Chaos, provides protection while maintaining, and Chaotic Release, its consumability, has a prominent animation that provides super speed, fury, and might to allies in a cone. Enemies caught in the cone will take minor damage and be knocked back. Legendary Dwarf Stance is a defense-heavy stance that should be used in melee range or is needed to survive. Soothing Stone does not heal for very much but does cleanse 5 condition. Inspiring Reinforcement, commonly referred to as Rhodes, offers pulsing stability, damage, and a light field. Rhodes should not be used during a stealth bomb because it reveals the squad. Rhodes is excellent at providing stability along walls or bridges. Vengeful Hammers, aka Hammers, reduces incoming damage by 20%, deals damage around the Revenant, and provides a small heal. Forced Engagement will chain 2 enemy players, knocking back enemies near your target and slowing the target themselves. Rite of the Great Dwarf is the stance's elite skill. When activated, it will break stuns, grant a 50% damage reduction for you and up to 5 of your friends. Weapon skills. Most of the time, you will have your Hammer active for fights. Basic damage combos are Coalescence of Ruin, Hammer 2, into the largest concentration of enemies, followed immediately by Phase Smash, Hammer 3, right on top of it. From there, auto attack until they are off cooldown. Field of the Mists, Hammer 4, will destroy enemy projectiles and create a dark field that always stays in front of you. Friendly projectiles that pass through the field steal life. Drop the Hammer, Hammer 5, is a large AoE knockdown. It has a very obvious animation and a long wind-up time, but can still cause good CC. Drop the Hammer is also a blast finisher that can be used to blast stealth. All damaging hammer abilities have a 1200 range. When a commander calls for a range spike, this usually refers to heralds using Coalescence Rune and Phase Smash on the indicated area. Sword skills. Chilling Isolation, Sword 2, is an AoE attack that deals decent damage and chills foes. It is also a whirl finisher. Unrelenting Assault, Sword 3, causes you to jump to your target and several other nearby targets, dealing some damage. While the skill is active, you will evade attacks and gain might each time you damage an enemy. Shackling Wave, Sword 4, is a wide cone attack that causes vulnerability and immobilize on up to 3 targets. Death Strike, Sword 5, is a shadow step toward your target that causes heavy damage if it hits. Your first and second auto attacks deal little damage and inflict vulnerability. The third auto attack deals significantly more damage. Combat. While in combat, Coalescence of Ruin and Phase Smash should be used as often as possible into the largest concentration of enemies. Fill dead space with auto attacks. By targeting enemies in the back, your auto attack will hit multiple targets. Drop the Hammer should be used whenever the commander calls for CC or a bomb. Maintain Facet of Strength and Facet of Darkness for as long as possible to provide the group buffs. When your energy runs low, you can either change into Dwarf Stance or consume the facets to regain energy regeneration. If the fight moves into melee range, swap to dual swords and dwarf stance. Rhodes can be used to deal damage and provide your squad with stability and swiftness. Turn on Vengeful Hammers for added sustain and AoE damage. Use Right of the Great Dwarf as needed to reduce the squad's incoming damage. Shackling Wave and Chilling Isolation should be used off cooldown. Be careful about using Unrelenting Assault, as it may drop you in the middle of the enemy Zerg and away from your allies. Try not to interrupt your auto attack chain when possible. As with all builds, practice will make you better. And remember, stay on tag, have fun, and get some loot.